I'm 24 and still haunted by my abusive childhood. My dad said, "You won't remember the fun, only the pain," after the worst birthday ever. I finally left home to join the Guard, but my parents' scars still hold me back. How can I break free? I know this is a long post. I do not expect everyone to read it, but I need to express what is on my mind. I want to forget everything they did and what they prevented me from doing. However, I am still suffering due to their arrogance and ignorance at the age of 24. I have lost countless opportunities for a life worth living because of my father, mother, older brother, and sister. I have been off Adderall for 5 years. I have quit using marijuana at least 4 times. Things are challenging, but I am still striving to improve. This post serves as an outlet for my frustrations. If anyone wants to stir up trouble, I am sure there is a subreddit dedicated to that. Memories from my childhood keep me awake at night. I am still trying to comprehend how people can be so foolish. I continue to rely on medication to achieve a decent night's sleep. One of my earliest memories is a negative experience at Disney when I was 6 years old, where my brother, sister, and father bullied me for only being tall enough to ride the airplane. Height restrictions are common knowledge, yet that factor was not even considered before they spent thousands on a trip that not all of their children could enjoy. That incident sticks with me because it encapsulates my entire relationship with them. Additionally, they homeschooled me until the 6th grade. I never discovered the reason why, but beef has always upset my stomach. It was my father's favorite food. When I told him that going to bed hungry was preferable to eating what he prepared, he left bruises that lasted for weeks. He would often make me go without food for days at a time. When people inquired about why I hadn't eaten or why I was not allowed to eat at public events, he would simply claim I was picky and hard-headed. Consequently, people left it alone, despite my appearing emaciated in every childhood photograph. My stomach is still the size of a child's. Both of my parents possess a dangerous amount of arrogance. My father would spend the entire day getting angry with everyone else, only to come home and take it out on a 5'4" woman and his own children, all without consuming any alcohol. My mother was unfaithful since I was in middle school and believes she can dictate who others should date. My mother was a unique kind of foolish. She has never paid a bill in her life. However, when my brother or sister was practicing for their sports or attending their clubs, I would be in the car with her, listening to her scream about how expensive their activities were to the point that it echoed. My skin would always be red, itchy, and burning from the soap and detergent she purchased, and she would just yell at me for being a baby. When I was 11, my father had me paternity tested. A child of a civil engineer cannot fail a math test. He will never admit it, but there is only one thing he would have wanted to know from a blood test. After that, receiving any grade below a C would result in my being dragged back down the hall to face punishment. I suffered carpet burns on my ankles and shins, with some marks still visible in my 20s. He would even wait an hour, then pull me into the bathroom to inspect me for bruises, informing me how I really got them. My 11th birthday was the worst I have ever experienced. I had only 3 friends I could invite. We had a decent time playing Nintendo DS and Wii, but 3 of us had the DS Lite, while one had the DC, which uses a different charger that he had left at home. When his device began to die, my father learned of the issue and pinned me to the wall by my neck. It took my friends and my older brother pleading with him to save me from suffocating. The next morning, I woke up later than all my friends. They had gone outside while I was pouring my cereal. My father walked into the kitchen, saw me alone, and without saying anything began dragging me back down the hall while I yelled, "I have to eat." When we arrived back at his room, he literally threw me to the floor. I managed to get back up and tell him I needed to eat again, and he struck my face so hard that I thought I had lost my nose. He then proceeded to mark up my entire body while yelling at me for being a failure. My friends witnessed the marks and were visibly shocked, yet no one said anything. He told me I would not remember that night for the fun I had, but for the pain I endured. Credit where it is due, that was one instance in which he told the truth. However, it pales in comparison to my 10th birthday, where I asked to attend a superhero movie that my parents disapproved of. For attempting to argue my case, I found myself sitting alone in a chair in the middle of our living room with a warning that I would face consequences if I stood up. When I turned 12, I wanted to join the basketball team. Both of my parents would go crazy over March Madness every year, so one would think they would at least arrange for me to get my physical. However, that was not the case. I begged until I cried. They eventually dragged me to the doctor's office for the physical I needed so desperately, but sign-ups had been closed for weeks. I argued my case the following year, but my brother chimed in unexpectedly, without them telling him it was not his business, and said verbatim, "Basketball is for pretty boys who think they have everything. You should run cross-country with me." And just like that, my next 5 years were decided. When I told them I did not want to play guitar, audition for the musical, run track, or march in the band, my father literally put a hole in my forehead that took 2 months to heal. The bones in my skull have only been properly aligned for about 2 years now. I spent most of my 16 years feeling isolated in their basement because I hurt their pride simply by existing. Therapists have done me more harm than anyone else. My parents forced me to go when I was 15 because I told them college was a waste of time and money. I never had the opportunity to uncover my own interests, talents, or opportunities until I was left with just 1 year of school. When my older sister offered me marijuana, I accepted it. I will always regret that decision. When anyone asks me why, I can only say it was because I wanted to feel something other than hopelessness. At 16, I earned enough from my job to pay for martial arts classes. I almost broke a guy's arm for attempting to steal my lunchbox. After that, my father did not touch me because he would not put his hands on someone who could fight back. I was 17 when I enlisted in the National Guard. The behavioral health girl received a bonus check for every soldier she diagnosed. I was labeled autistic and was not allowed to perform the job they hired me to train for because I did not lie about my parents sending me to therapy. I served as a carpentry and masonry specialist in the Corps of Engineers. I finally felt proud of something I accomplished independently, building barracks for other soldiers and shelter for refugees. However, I never got the opportunity to do that. I passed the physical examination for flight school with flying colors. Unfortunately, the federal government has my autism diagnosis on file, so I am not permitted to even apply. I am not even allowed to learn a trade to determine my own success or failure. I am grounded in one of the poorest counties in the country, deemed not good enough to leave. My golden boy brother is 27 and still pursuing college. He will be in debt for the rest of his life. My sister nearly went to jail for using more serious drugs than marijuana, and my parents bilayed her out 4 or 5 times. I am debt-free and have no criminal record, yet I am still labeled the lazy one for everything they did not allow me to do during high school. I am still residing at my father's house. My younger sister has endured enough hardship at the hands of that jerk. As frustrated as I am about not being able to afford my own home, I am grateful to be there for my sister. She has 2 years of school remaining. Having grown up in this environment, I feel responsible for her because my parents have neglected her in much the same way as they did me. My bond with my younger sister and cousins has made me stronger, not the nonsense from my parents. I have had the privilege of being a father figure to them, more so than the jerk my father and uncle have ever been, and I would not change that for anything. I apologize for the lengthy message. It simply feels good to be heard or read in this case. Story 2. My 23-year-old life took a wild turn when I kissed my Uncle Rick's 25-year-old wife, Anna, during a vulnerable moment. I just feel like I'm fading into the background, she said, and I couldn't resist. Now I'm regretting our heated encounter, trapped between guilt and desire. How do I navigate this family mess? Edit, please read the entire post before responding. There is a lot of context to what occurred, and yes, perhaps I am in the wrong, but I need to express this. I, 23 male, do not know what to do about what has been happening with my Uncle Rick, 47 male, and his wife, Anna, 25 female. I have known my Uncle Rick for as long as I can remember. He was always that laid-back uncle I admired when I was younger. He was the type of guy who would crack jokes at family gatherings, drink a beer, and exude an "I am just here for a good time" attitude. However, as I have grown older, I have begun to realize he is not the best role model. His lifestyle is chaotic, and honestly, he is not someone I would seek advice from anymore. Rick has been divorced twice, and his relationships with women are not exactly healthy. He drinks excessively, which has impacted his marriage to Anna. I have witnessed his behavior when he is intoxicated, and it is difficult to observe. He can be verbally abusive, and while I have never seen him become physically violent, I can tell that Anna feels as though she is walking on eggshells around him at times. I believe she feels trapped, but she does not know how to escape the situation. I hate watching this happen, especially since Anna is so much younger than him. My mother often comments on the age difference between Rick and Anna. She feels uncomfortable with it. She makes remarks like, "It is just strange. Anna is barely older than you. How is she supposed to connect with someone like him?" Every time I hear her say something like that, it makes me feel uneasy. It is difficult to disregard that there is something unsettling about their dynamic. And while I am unsure how much of it is due to the age difference, I cannot help but wonder if that contributes to the way Rick treats her. I have always been friends with Anna. She is not just Rick's wife. We have spent time together outside of family events, texting and discussing random topics like movies, weekend plans, and life in general. I believe that is why I noticed when things began to change between her and Rick. She would send me messages about how his behavior was becoming worse. Occasionally, she would text me late at night after she had reached her limit with his drinking or when he was being distant or unkind. I listened and knew I needed to support her, yet I felt powerless. Initially, I did not think much of it. Rick's drinking had been a problem for years, but it seemed to deteriorate, especially after their marriage. Anna would send me lengthy texts about how Rick barely acknowledged her anymore, mentioning that he would disappear for hours or lock himself in his office drinking, completely ignoring her. She would express that they were not connecting, that their relationship felt more like two roommates sharing space than a married couple. And the most heartbreaking part was that she would tell me he would get angry at her for no reason, often belittling her or making her feel insignificant. I would try to reassure her that she deserved more than that, but I did not know how to help. I think she felt trapped, and it pained me to see her in that situation. I will never forget a family gathering a few months ago. We were all sitting around the dinner table when Rick had been drinking since the afternoon. Anna was sitting next to him, attempting to engage in small talk, but Rick was not paying attention. He began mocking her in front of everyone, calling her naive and accusing her of lacking knowledge about real life. It was incredibly embarrassing. Anna attempted to laugh it off, but I could see the pain in her eyes. It was as though she had become the target of all his anger, and he was making it clear to everyone that she was beneath him. My father, who is usually laid back, finally intervened. "Rick, cool it," he said, but Rick merely ignored him. He continued to insult Anna, calling her stupid for an innocent mistake she made earlier in the day. I saw Anna's face go pale, and the moment she excused herself from the table, Rick did not even acknowledge her departure. My dad urged Rick to stop, but Rick simply stood up and walked out, leaving Anna alone with tears in her eyes. She went to the bathroom and I followed her. I found her sitting on the floor, sobbing, holding herself as if trying to prevent herself from falling apart. I wanted to say something to comfort her, but all I could do was sit beside her and offer my silent support. A few weeks ago, I stopped by their house to pick something up and Anna was home alone. She invited me to stay for a while and catch up. I had no reason to decline, so I stayed. We began discussing random topics, but the conversation quickly turned more personal. She expressed that she felt she and Rick had become more like roommates than a married couple. She mentioned that he was always drinking and that she could not remember the last time they truly connected. Anna said she missed feeling wanted and loved. I was unsure how to respond. I told her that relationships go through phases and that I was certain they were just experiencing a rough patch. She did not seem convinced, and I was at a loss for what to say next. As the conversation progressed, I noticed she seemed a bit off. I did not realize at that moment, but she was likely slightly intoxicated. She confided that she felt invisible to Rick. It was a lot to process, but I did not want to be the person to tell her to simply move on or anything of that sort, so I just listened. Then she inquired about my romantic life, which was somewhat strange. I joked about how no one seemed particularly interested in me, but then she said something that surprised me. She remarked, "You are a great guy, smart, funny, attractive. I am sure there is someone who appreciates you for who you are." At that moment, I felt somewhat uncomfortable, but I tried to brush it off and made a joke to lighten the mood. She persisted, saying that I deserved someone who truly recognized my worth. It did not sit well with me, but I did not want to make things awkward, so I let it go. The more we spoke, the more she revealed just how disconnected she felt from Rick. It was evident that she was genuinely struggling with everything. I was unsure how to alleviate her pain. She looked at me with a sorrowful expression and said she felt like she was fading into the background of Rick's life. That struck me deeply. I could see how much she cared about him, and it was clear that she was suffering. Then the situation took an unexpected turn. She moved closer to me, and I began to feel increasingly uncomfortable with the level of intimacy that was developing. At that point, it was apparent she was definitely intoxicated, and I suggested it might be best to call it a night. I went to tidy up, thinking that would be the end of it. However, when I turned around, she was standing right behind me. Before I could comprehend what was happening, she kissed me. It was not forceful. It was slow, almost hesitant, as if she were unsure whether I would pull away. And honestly, I did not. I kissed her back, not because I wanted to, but because the moment felt so charged, as though it was the culmination of everything she had been feeling. As we kissed, something transformed. She pulled me closer and I reciprocated. We were holding on to each other as if we needed that contact, that assurance. I knew it was wrong, yet the moment felt so genuine. We remained like that for some time, simply embracing before things gradually intensified. The kiss evolved into something more intimate. We ended up on the couch, our hands exploring each other's bodies, caught up in the fervor of the moment. I was not thinking clearly. It felt as though everything had led up to this instant. What began as a kiss soon escalated into us being fully intimate, intertwined with one another. The gravity of what was occurring hit me hard afterward. I was uncertain how to process it or what to do next. Since then, things have felt awkward. I have been avoiding her, yet I cannot stop thinking about what happened. I constantly question whether I made the wrong choice. I feel as though everything has changed, but I do not know how to reverse it. Rick is my uncle. I do not want to hurt him. However, I also cannot ignore what transpired. The intimacy felt as though it was more than just a one-time mistake, as if I had been emotionally involved this entire time without even realizing it. I am uncertain about what to do now. I feel guilty, confused, and caught in the middle of a situation that makes me feel like I am walking on a razor's edge. I worry that if I tell Rick now, given how he is, he might take it out on Anna. My family would surely be disappointed in me, and our relatives would likely distance themselves from me. It was just a one-time occurrence, yet I cannot erase it from my mind. I cannot stop thinking of her in that way. I know infidelity is wrong, which is why I ceased after the first time, but I cannot continue to ignore Anna or my own feelings. I just feel so lost. What am I supposed to do? Story 3. I thought I was dating a divorced man, but when he forgot my birthday, I uncovered a shocking truth. He's still married. I told you I'm 100% divorced, he insisted, but his wife's social media tells a different story. How did I miss such a massive lie? Summary: a 1.5-year relationship was entirely deceptive from the start. He was never divorced. I discovered this only after he forgot my birthday, and I could not accept his insincere apology. In June and July 2023, I, 34 years old female, met a man 34 years old male through a video game I was playing with friends. Over the next month, he spoke to me privately and shared some of the difficulties he was experiencing, primarily that he was in the midst of a separation or divorce. He confided that his wife had cheated on him and engaged in criminal behavior, and he was hoping for a swift divorce. As the following months passed, we grew closer, and despite the distance of 1,800 miles between us, we decided to work toward a relationship. While it was not officially defined, we considered ourselves off the market. Due to a non-work-related injury in early 2024, he exhausted all his paid time off. Taking the initiative, I visited him twice. Once in March 2024 for 3 days, during which we made our relationship official and celebrated my 33rd birthday, and again in September 2024 for 6 days. During the September visit, we would meet for 2 to 3 hours each day after he finished work, totaling perhaps 12 hours overall. Some notable aspects of these visits include the fact that I never went to his home, even though it was less than 15 minutes from the hotel. I never even saw his vehicle. We used my rental car whenever we went out. I did not meet any of his family or friends despite their living in the same area. We visited a mall once because I wanted to be romantic and create a Build-A-Bear with him, and we also went to a Buc-ee's, which he claimed was very close to his home. After returning home from the September 2024 trip, I observed a change in the relationship over the following month. He was less flirty and romantic than he had been previously. I discussed this change with him multiple times, questioning what had happened to all the text messages, pictures, and flirty communication that had made our bond feel more intimate than mere friendship. He assured me he would put in more effort moving forward. In November 2024, there was a glaring red flag that I overlooked far too quickly and regret now. He called me while at a party or benefit, and during our conversation, he asked me to hold on while he said goodbye to someone. I overheard part of the conversation, and towards the end, he told the man, reach out to female name to arrange a meetup. The name was unfamiliar to me, and though I refrained from saying anything at that moment, it seemed to resonate in my mind. After pondering the name for a day, I began to do some research. At that point, he had supposedly been divorced for over a year. I attempted to find the divorce decree or certificate. While I discovered one from a previous marriage I was aware of, I found none for his most recent marriage. Searching online, I stumbled upon an obituary for his grandmother, who had passed about 5 to 6 months after we began talking. The obituary listed the name of a male and his wife with the same name as the female from his earlier comment. Upon seeing that name again, it finally registered why it sounded familiar. Before I had saved his contact in my phone, the caller ID had displayed that female name. That night, I called him while crying and asked him to be truthful with me. He insisted that he was completely divorced and did not understand why I could not find the decree online. He explained that his grandmother's obituary had been prearranged while he was still married and speculated that it had not been updated. He also mentioned that his phone plan was under his cousin's name, who shares the same first name as his ex-wife and was currently living with him, which was why he had told the man to contact her for further arrangements. Because he appeared genuinely hurt and upset that I would think he was lying about something so significant, especially considering our many discussions on our feelings about infidelity. I felt guilty for doubting him and decided to let it go. By the final week of March, tensions escalated. I had not reminded him of the exact date of my birthday. I was aware that I was testing him, which was neither healthy nor fair, but I wanted him to remember. On my birthday, he called me as usual. We conversed briefly, hung up, and he called back later in the afternoon to inquire about my work. Trying to be playful, I told him I did not feel like working that day. After some back and forth, which included urging him to guess the reason I wasn't working, I became emotional and ultimately interrupted while fighting back tears to say, "It's my birthday." He chuckled and responded, "Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, but I am terrible at remembering birthdays. Everyone in my family knows that. If they don't remind me, I'll never remember." but for what it's worth, happy birthday. This apology felt incredibly insincere, hardly a real apology at all. I shut down and provided one-word emotionless answers to his questions while trying to focus on what I needed to accomplish during my timeout. 2 hours later, after he attempted to make a joke suggesting that if I drank, I should get some alcohol to celebrate, I lost my composure. I asked him how I was supposed to deal with the hurt feelings I was experiencing. He immediately grew defensive and reiterated that he had apologized. I acknowledged that he had apologized, but I questioned how he could forget in the first place. Was it truly too much to expect my boyfriend to remember my birthday? I asked how he would feel if I forgot his birthday. At that point, I was again in tears. He answered my last question dismissively, saying, "It wouldn't matter to me. Hardly anyone remembers my birthday anyway, so it would be fine." I countered that this was false because on the night his birthday struck midnight, my friend and I had heard his family wishing him happy birthday over the gaming microphone. He tried to defend himself by saying he meant outside of his family, but after that remark, he didn't say much more. I remained audibly upset, and after 3 to 4 minutes of silence, I told him that since we were no longer talking, I would call my mother and see him later. He simply said, "Okay," and hung up. He did not communicate with me for the rest of the day. The following day, I sent him a message to say good morning since he had not reached out yet. He replied with a good morning of his own. When I asked how he was, he expressed annoyance regarding the previous day's events, claiming it felt like a slap in the face when I ended the call to speak with my mom. He stated he felt like he could not say anything right, that I was not accepting his apology, and that he did not reach out the night before because he wanted to give me space. I told him that his apology had felt hollow and I did not comprehend what he wanted from me. Was I expected to sit silently on the phone with him while crying? I explained that his decision not to get online to talk to me was the wrong choice. He merely replied with a thumbs up. The next day, as I was logging into work, I noticed he had begun to block me on all communication platforms we used. Before he could completely block me, I sent him a message saying I thought we had promised to never ghost each other and to have honest conversations unless the issue was something irreparable, like cheating or stealing. He read my message and then blocked me on that platform as well. During a conversation with my mother, a memory surfaced regarding something I had discovered during my research back in November. Originally, I found a profile for him on Facebook, featuring a picture of him with a woman who appeared to be very close to him, resembling a couple. However, when I checked the date of the most recent post, it was from 2020, so I dismissed it as an old picture or post. I revisited that profile and nothing had significantly changed. Upon examining the profile picture more closely and checking the comments, I discovered a profile with his wife's name, and her profile picture was a similar image of the two of them together. Upon visiting her profile, I saw that her most recent post had been from a week earlier, and as I scrolled down, I noted she had tagged him in multiple posts from the last month. They were still married. I was completely stunned. Everything had been a deception, absolutely everything. He had claimed at the beginning of our relationship that he did not have any social media. While browsing through her posts in which he was tagged, I realized he had reacted to them from his profile. We had shared so many conversations about our disdain for cheaters, emphasizing that if someone was unhappy, they should just leave. I felt nauseous, thinking about why I had not investigated that profile more thoroughly when I first stumbled upon it 4 to 5 months ago. Story 4. My friends turned on me in high school when Anna called me a backstabbing BTCH for kissing Nate, something I never even told her about. "You knew how I felt," she screamed. Years later, she still pretends we never knew each other. I finally cut ties for good. They say the friends you make in high school are not always going to be your friends as you transition into adulthood. Perhaps some will remain, but certainly not everyone. There is usually someone or a few who is not genuinely supportive of you. For me, I was known as the token loud black girl in the group. This detail is important for later. To provide context, I will assign everyone fake names: Anna, Olivia, Nate, and Kim. There will be additional names, but these are the primary ones for now. For the longest time, I could not understand why my so-called friends were so close to one another while I was often left out of the loop. At the time, I attributed it to us being in different classes. However, we spent time together at the start of the day in the yard during lunch, and some of us took the school bus home together because we lived in the same general area. Throughout most of our high school years, I was typically the single one. The exception was my sophomore year when I was with a guy, let's call him Carlos, who was a mutual friend of a friend. To be honest, I dated this guy as a favor because he was interested in a friend who did not want him, so she more or less handed him over to me. Truthfully, in retrospect, he was not a bad guy until the incident that caused our breakup. He confessed to essentially being involved with another girl, but failed to inform me for about 2 months. Fast forward a couple of months, and a friend from our group, whom I will refer to as Larissa, began acting strangely toward me. She was not very responsive, could not maintain eye contact, and would often avoid me. Then one day, Kim informed me that Larissa and Carlos were dating. What troubled me was that Larissa had been dating Carlo's best friend just a couple of weeks prior, and they had separated after a sensitive situation I cannot fully disclose. Upon hearing this, I resolved to cut both of them off. A true friend would not behave that way, and a real best friend would not date your ex behind your back. During my high school years, I had a few crushes, but most of the guys did not feel the same way. Instead, they seemed to be drawn to my friends. As I mentioned earlier, I was the token loud black girl, whereas my friends were lighter-skinned women of color with the exception of Kim, who was slightly darker than I am. Colorism was quite prevalent during my high school years. If you know, you know. Fast forward to prom season. I struggled to find a prom date while everyone else had already found theirs. For reasons I cannot explain, a male friend from our group, let's name him Jackson, agreed to take me. We purchased our prom tickets and began planning our outfits. The week before prom, Jackson informed me that he had found someone else to attend prom with, not just anyone, but a friend from our group who was white. I was not emotionally devastated, but I was moderately annoyed as prom is not an inexpensive event. I decided that rather than attending with him, I would go to prom solo. However, since our names were on the same ticket, we had to arrive together. As soon as we arrived at prom, I went my way and he went his. No problem. I ended up having a great time at prom regardless. Rewinding to freshman year, Anna met Nate in class and he asked her out several times. Each time she declined. However, Nate had a reputation as a ladies' man as he was often surrounded by girls. One day, Anna introduced me to Nate and playfully suggested that I should date him instead. Initially, I disagreed. However, for a good 3 out of 4 years, she insisted. Over time, Anna would frequently flirt with and chase other guys but would act disinterested just as often. Throughout our time in high school, she consistently encouraged me to date or flirt with Nate. Not only Anna, but also Kim and Olivia encouraged me. Naturally, with my friend's encouragement and Nate's reciprocation of interest, I developed a crush on him. Fast forward to the end of the school year. I decided to visit Nate one day after school because I had not seen him in a while, which I will explain shortly. He took me to his house and we watched a couple of movies. Being teenagers, we engaged in a lot of flirtatious banter which led to a mutual kiss. Like any teenage girl, I was overjoyed. I shared the news only with Kim, intending to tell everyone else the following Monday. That Monday arrived, and as soon as I got off the school bus, my phone began ringing. It was Anna. When I answered, she immediately called me a backstabbing bitch and accused me of stealing him, saying, "You knew how I felt about him all these years." Naturally, I was confused because I had not informed her about Nate. When I asked her where she had gotten the information, she claimed that Kim had told her. However, Kim had exaggerated the details and made it sound like Nate and I had done more than just kiss, leading Anna to be furious with me. Before I could explain the truth, Nate started calling and texting me, asking, "Why did you tell her?" I clarified that I had only told Kim and that she had added details when speaking to Anna. With both of them accusing me of lying, I attempted to resolve the situation by calling them both simultaneously to clarify things. Once Nate heard Anna on the line, he immediately turned against me, claiming, "Why are you lying to her? That never happened." He denied everything. Anna stated that she didn't know whom to believe and then hung up. Nate went on to say that until Anna talked to him and they were together, I should never speak to him again, after which he also hung up. I was extremely frustrated and saddened, so I went home and shared everything with my mother. She made it clear that after all I had done for Anna, her reaction and her statement about not knowing what to believe indicated that she had never been my true friend. A little over a year later, I found myself attending the same community college as Anna, Kim, and Olivia. Kim and Olivia were still friends, but they had a disagreement or falling out with Anna at some point and were no longer speaking. To this day, I do not know the cause and have no interest in finding out. One day, I felt enough time had passed to discuss the Nate incident as adults. However, as soon as I brought it up, Anna pretended she had no idea what I was talking about. I even showed her the old text messages still on my phone, but she feigned ignorance as if it had never happened. At that point, I decided it was time to cut ties. I have not spoken to her since, deleted her from all my social media accounts, blocked her number, and washed my hands of the entire situation. Since then, this was 15 years ago. We are in our 30s now, to the best of my knowledge. Kim is working and has 2 children. Carlos is married with several children of his own. Jackson works in my building. Nate, who was at least 2 years older than us, turned out to be a creep because he had a child with a high school sophomore less than 2 years after the incident. Anna, according to those who remained friends with her for a while longer, pretends not to recognize anyone from our high school friend group except for a select few. Olivia was my only real friend because she eventually told me that she had stopped talking to Anna on my behalf after the situation with Nate, as she believed what Anna did was wrong and could not support someone who would lie to her friends for such a long time and in the end only care about herself. For all those years that Anna tried to convince me to date Nate, she was confiding in Olivia about her own feelings for him without ever being honest with me. Had she been truthful, I would have left him alone because that is the kind of friend I am. Instead, she lied to me throughout high school only to pretend it never occurred, claiming she did not know anyone from that time. As for me, I am currently working, earning a reasonable income, going to therapy, and in a relationship with an absolute gentleman for 2 years now. The moral of the story is that not everyone is your friend.